Hi to you both. Thanks for waiting. So can I offer you anything? Coffee, water?
No.
No, thank you.
Okay. Well, it seems like we've resolved all issues except funding Troy's college education. How is Troy? What is he, 15 now?
Right, and he's doing great.
Okay, well, of course you know that under Connecticut law, divorcing spouses are required to pay for tuition costs plus expenses for any child completing a degree at the University of Connecticut, wherever they happen to get their undergraduate. So why don't you just go with that?
I'm the one who's going to be paying most of Troy's college fees, etc. David doesn't have very good prospects for making money down the road. Sorry to put it so bluntly, David.
It's okay. It's true.
And we both like Troy to be guaranteed more than the Yukon minimum that you just referred to.
Okay, let me interrupt for a moment. Just to be clear, you're both still on board with the idea that you, David, are waiving your right to alimony. And David, you would be entitled to alimony because of the differences in your income. So if you waive alimony now, you can't come back for it later. A court will not allow you to petition later to change a divorce decree in order to receive alimony, especially if that original divorce decree did not allow for it.
I think I got that straight.
So what's the issues with the college costs?
Partly at your suggestion, Monica, David is giving up alimony in exchange for my agreement to pay the lion's share of Troy's college.
Right, and we can put that in the divorce agreement as part of Saskia's child support obligation. Which, by the way, Saskia, how do you plan to fund this?
With Apple Core stock. I've got a lot of it. Low basis, though. I'd give $300,000 in current market value with a basis of about $30,000.
Look, I just want to make sure Troy is covered here. I want him to be able to get this money no matter what happens, even if I die before he gets out of college.
Okay, I'm sorry I have to ask, David, did you not plan to live that long?
No, nothing like that.
Oh, okay. You had me worried there for a moment. So what you're thinking is because child support obligation dies with you, which it does, Troy would not be able to enforce the agreement because it's a contract between you and Saskia.
Yeah, I mean, you've told us about child support going away at the death of either ex-spouse, and I just want to be cautious here. I want to make sure Troy gets the money no matter what.
Well, the simplest way is for one or both of you to contribute to an irrevocable trust that has sufficient assets to pay for that.
Trusts are wonderful, but I'm not comfortable using one here. David and I can't think of anyone we trust to serve as trustee, and I don't like institutional trustees, bank trusts, departments, and so forth. In my limited experience, they're extremely expensive relative to the value of the trust corpus, and not as reliable as I'd like. Banks screw up sometimes. I don't want to overpay for this, nor do I want a trustee making bad choices about how to manage the corpus.
Okay. Well, you're quite right. Let's see. We can think about... David, you're not comfortable leaving it that Saskia informally promises to pay for Troy?
Look, I don't want to make a big deal of it. I said I'm agreeing to no alimony in exchange for a binding agreement for Saskia to pay the college stuff. I just want to make sure Saskia understands this.
And I'm fine with that. So how should we do it?
Okay. So it can't be a trust, it can't be child support, and it can't be alimony. Well, income tax law only recognizes one other category, a property settlement. So let's look at that. If one of you decides to give property to the other in a divorce decree, there is no recognition of gain for either of you. And you can even make an offsetting payment without any taxable gain. However, the property will keep whatever basis it had. So if you give him the stock, there's no tax to pay on it. However, he or Troy, should you give it to Troy, would have to pay tax upon selling it.
I know that part of the stock's value would go to taxes if I sold it.
But if you left it to Troy in your will, he'd get a step-up basis and owe no tax on it if he sold it for its full value at your death. God forbid.
I hadn't thought of that. So, what should we do, counselor?
I do have an idea. Saskia, you give David an undivided half interest in the stock.
No.
Oh, okay, well, let me finish. You give him interest in the stock, which you then hold as tenants in common. David, let me explain that to you for a moment. We're going to try and look at this as a transfer of interest in a family home, like we do in all other divorces. So here, David would have a half interest in the stock, subject to an obligation to pay you 99% of the proceeds should he sell it. This would put the burden on David to pay for taxes on the gain, which we all know he can't afford to pay right now. And as it goes, you would get the full value of the stock returned to you should he sell it. And if he should die while he holds the stock, its appreciation escapes the income tax based on the stepped-up basis. Now, of course, both of you are going to need to agree in the divorce settlement agreement to maintain wills where you bequeath the stock to Troy.
I'm beginning to see it. So if David dies before Troy is 21, then the stock would go to Troy under David's will, and I would hold the stock as trustee. I know there's some risk that a court could appoint an institutional trustee if I were to die or go crazy, but that's remote enough for me not to worry about it. So, David, would you be comfortable with that much of a guarantee?
Look, I'm a little in the dark here, but if you both think it's a reasonable solution, and Troy will definitely get the money no matter what, then I'm on board.
Good.
Monica, could you please put something in writing and give me a chance to consider it?
Sure.
And Apple pays big dividends from time to time. These would go to David, wouldn't they?
Yes, David can hold the stock subject to an obligation to pay dividends to you or Troy. I think he can anyway. So the real question is whether we can do this as an all tax-free property settlement. I mean, will the arrangement as a property settlement be okay according to the code and regs? That's something I'm going to need to research and get back to both of you.
Okay.
Hey, I think I'll take that cup of coffee now. Please.